Hey, time again. Daniel Weekly 41. Not that I'm really doing these weekly nowadays. I'm doing them more irregularly. But I figured it is fun like this anyway. And yeah. So there's been a bunch of things going on since the previous episode. For example, I participated in the Swedish podcast kodsnack just a few weeks ago, and it went public this Tuesday. A fun episode about curl, HTTP2 and stuff in Swedish. I blogged a while ago now, but about the first 115 days since the HTTP2 RFC. There's now a garbage truck outside. I wonder if you can tell by the sound. So, 115 days since the HTTP2 RFC, and a little bit about the deployment numbers and usage and so on. Firefox 40 uses HTTP2 13% in all HTTP. Or actually, there is HTTP2 in 13% of all responses in Firefox 40 among those that participate in the stat collection. Interesting numbers. I did, and talking then about HTTP2, I finally, like a few weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, 1 week ago, I don't remember, I took the step and switched in my document, the HTTP2 explained, that I host on the site, that I've been writing in LibreOffice all this time. I finally took the time and effort and converted the LibreOffice annoying binary format into markdown. So I converted the entire document into markdown, and I'm using the gitbook.com service to convert it into a book. And so it generates HTML, PDF, and EPUB, and some other ebook format. So it generates all that from the markdown source. It makes everything much easier to cooperate with, and it's much better format to put on GitHub and everything. And and it regenerates everything on every single commit now, or every push actually. So it's easier to maintain an updated PDF all the time. And I asked my translators, and I must say that they were really on the ball. So we have the French one, the Spanish one, and the Russian one are all now converted to Markdown as well. I'm sort of working on a Swedish translation too, so if you want to help out with the Swedish one, do let me know. I think I'm about halfway, and I do get respect for the translators when I'm translating my own document. It is time consuming and hard at times. So even if nobody helps me, I'm going to get there eventually. It'll just take a long time. I participated in that Google Tech Talk I mentioned before, and that video from that talk went live yesterday on YouTube. So now you can see me. Well, it's not that much me because it's mostly my slides, but you can hear me stumble and talk about curl for a long time and get some questions from the audience. And that was fun. I've been working to I can step back again. One of the most common complaints about curl is that it is that we lack in the documentation department, that we should get more docs and improve in documentation. So that's really what I've been doing a lot of stuff with the last years, I would say. I'm trying to gradually improve documentation everywhere within the project. So for example, I've split up some of the biggest man pages over the last years into many sub man pages instead. So that's an explanation for the explosion of man pages in the curl project. We now have over 300. I mentioned that last episode, right? 350 man pages or so, and just recently I split up the curl easy get info man page into 27 sub pages instead. So in my effort to improve documentation and make things easier and learn more about how to use curl, I've also added now a warning about. It's not a warning; it's more of a note. When people are using the dash uppercase X option in what I consider wrongly, and it's not a warning. It just says note blah 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 if you have verbose mode on, and it says that if you're using the capital X option and you set the same request method that curl would use anyway, as in uppercase X post, and then you use the -D option, it would send a post anyway, so it's unnecessary to set the post with the X option, or Xget, and in a normal URL it would use get anyway. So I've merged that into curl and I've blogged about it. Some people think I'm stupid to do that because they think it's a good option to use like that. Well, that's sort of why I took the middle ground. The note is only there if you use verbose mode, and it only says note, so it doesn't change any behavior, and you're free to ignore it if you want to. I blogged about it, so you can read more about my reasoning why, because it's actually in some cases plain wrong. I also wrote another blog post that I wanted to kind of get out of me for a long while about the curl and Wget war, which isn't a war because we don't really have a fight. We don't even have a struggle. We don't even throw funny jokes at each other. So I just wanted to mention that because sometimes I get questions, or I actually get questions quite often about people using Wget, and kind of throw that at me to see what I do or what I answer. Oh, what do you say about this, right? I prefer this for this type of scenario, but I don't care. Or rather, I think you all should use the best tool for the job, whatever you think is the best one, whichever you prefer. I don't gain anything by anyone using curl when another tool is better. So no. I think if there's another tool that is better for you, then you should use that other tool. And we should make sure that curl is the best one for what curl is there for. And of course, we should make sure that we maintain that. I just wanted to mention that because some people seem to think that we have some sort of war or feud, but we don't. On the contrary, I like the team. I even participate in the Wget project slightly, at least, kind of from the benches on commenting on things. And I've contributed code, not that much, but some. Right, and I converted my document, the curl versus Wget document that I've been hosting for years on my site. I converted it to markdown, see a trend here, and I put it on GitHub. So if you go to my curl versus Wget page now, it looks different. Actually, I would say it's somewhat worse than before, but still, it's there. And it's open for anyone to submit changes or pull requests or request whatever me to update, just to make sure that it kind of stays up to date and is fresh and accurate. And then in further efforts to proceed with the documentation, I also, and something that I've actually had requests for a very long time, and I will always kind of held back against this, but now I created a what do I call the curl cheat sheet? So basically a little page with the most common options users are using with HTTP. So I believe there are like the 15 most common, not the options, but things you do with curl and HTTP, and all just in a single page, just tiny explanations, basically made for you to print out or have it as an image, or just the options you use in 98% of all the cases you use curl with HTTP. And again, that's on GitHub. It's separate repository, separate project. You can go there, you can fork it, you can send pull requests, you can send requests, issues, whatever. Make your own or something. Tell me what you think is missing. We're in the curl feature freeze period, so you can't merge any new features for curl until October 7, when we intend to release curl 7.45.0. We're on good track there. nothing major is going on in that department. I would say there are some new things. That's why it's 45.0, so there are some changes that are not present in the previous versions, but I could delve into those after the release, really. Except the note on capital X. Yeah. I am going to, let's see now, what date is it? The 17th. I'm going to Budapest in Hungary to attend to ApacheCon and I'm going to talk on October 2nd. That is Friday in 2 weeks. I'm going to talk about HTTP2. There's actually a whole series of talks next to each other, following each other on the Friday with the HTTP2 flavor from different angles, server, implementations, TLS, blah, blah, blah. It's going to be fun. I have a bunch of talks coming up in October, but I'll get back to those when we get closer. Interesting bug of the week. This is a kind of I got this. The title of the bug is the subject. The guy who entered this, he said, "Downloading a long sequence of URLs results in high CPU usage and slowness." Oh right, performance problems, especially after a large number of URLs. That sounds like a really nasty thing you can work on and chase down forever, and platform specific and blah blah blah. But no, it turns out to be much easier and sillier than so. It turns out that this is curl, the command line tool, not the library. The library doesn't show this slowdown. No, it's the curl tool. So the person who submitted, he asked for a range like 0 to 1 billion or whatever. So curl would do a large amount of requests. I mean, more than 100, more than 1,000. It would do like 1 million. And I think I mentioned before the --libcurl option that generates libcurl code from a curl command line. Yeah, it always generates that code internally, and it uses a stupid linked list that doesn't keep track of the end, so it always kind of traverses the entire list and add a string at the end. That works fine if you just do a tiny little program for 100 lines or 200 lines. It doesn't really matter. Nobody will ever notice that speed little glitch until you do 1 million URLs and you're adding like 100 lines every URL. So after a while, there are a lot of lines in that code, and for every little new iteration, it would add a huge those 25, 30, 40 lines of code for every URL. So after 100,000 URLs, it would be a very, very long program in memory, and it would do that. Iterate through the entire list for every little thing it would add. Yeah, so it will get slower and slower and slower. And this is not fixed yet either, so the silly workaround is to just recompile curl without that libcurl option. There's a configure switch to switch it off, and then whew, it flies again. It's such a ridiculous bug. But anyway, I was hoping that someone would just grab it and fix it, since it's only in the curl tool. It's a fairly trivial kind of problem. But it hasn't happened yet. I think I'm gonna have to get in there and fix it. Option of the week. The curl command line tool has a lot of options, and this week I wanted to mention one that actually hasn't been included before, but it's stupid because it should have been, and it's the -O option. One of the most common ones, one of the ones on the curl cheat sheet. And curl -O just gets the file part, or the rightmost file part from the URL that you're downloading, and you create that file locally. And it's important to know that it extracts it from the URL that you enter. So if you enter example.com/hello, and and you type -O, it'll use the hello part as a local file name, but it saves it locally. That is, you can see on the URL that you're entering what name it'll use. So there are no surprises here. And that also means that if you're ending the URL with a slash, it can't find the name, so it'll fail and tell you that. It is important to realize that it picks the name from the local URL that you're passing. So even if you're adding the uppercase L option to follow redirects, it doesn't matter. It could follow many redirects. It'll still use that file name from that first URL that you enter on the command line. There are other options to make it behave differently, but that's how the -O, capital O, works. In the current cheat sheet, look it up. My weekly recordings aren't that weekly recently. I don't think they'll become more weekly either anytime soon. It depends on my motivation. So if you have questions, ideas, requests, whatever, send them through. And I'll talk to you later. Bye.